We are here at Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida, and today I'll be playing the biggest tournament of my entire life. It's a $5,300 buy-in with over $900,000 for first place. The field is stacked with top pros all trying to get a piece of the over $5 million prize pool. I sit down at my table in level number 3 with 40,000 chips. Let's get started. I'm extremely card dead for the first hour and a half. I don't really play a single hand throughout the first level and a half that I'm there. I do call one raise from Darren Elias, who has over $10 million worth of earnings, and I check fold on the flop before I pick up my first big pocket pair of the day, pocket queens. I raised to 1,200 chips and the button calls and the big blind calls as well, and when this happens, my heart rate and adrenaline spike through the roof. I went from relaxing, not playing any hands for over an hour and a half, to my heart rate going up to at least 180 beats per minute. I'm extremely nervous and anxious for some reason. I'm not sure why. I guess it's because it's the biggest tournament I've ever played in my entire life. We end up going 3 ways to a 9-4-4 flop. The big blind checks over to me and something kind of weird happens. The nervousness and anxiousness started turning into a panic after I saw this flop. I've only had one panic attack in my entire life and I felt like one was coming on right now. I had no idea what was going on. I started feeling like an outer body experience. So when the big blind checks, I decided to check and the button puts out a bet of 1,500. Now the big blind folds and I'm trying to calm myself down, trying to breathe, trying to relax. And I actually think to myself I should be putting in a check raise on this board, but because my mind is just a little bit frazzled and I'm just super nervous and anxious and almost on the verge of having a panic attack, I decide to just call the $1,500, which looking back, I think is fine. We're going to be way ahead or way behind on this board. It's good to allow the button to bluff or overvalue bet worse hands like underpairs or king high or ace high hands. The turn's a 3 and I continue to check. The button checks behind. The river's an ace, and now I decide to lead out for a 5,000 chip bet, which I don't know what I was doing. The button very quickly folds, and finally, we can breathe. We take down our first pot. Now that the hand's over, I start to analyze what the heck just happened there. I think there's a couple things that happened. One, this is the biggest tournament I've ever played. Tournaments are extremely intense, people staring at you, and it's also different than what I'm used to. I also only got about an hour or two of sleep because I had to be there super early in the morning. I didn't eat enough food, I think, as well, so I think it was just a bad combination. The other thing was that I was sitting there without playing a hand for over an hour and a half, and my heart rate spiked up to about 180 beats per minute in the matter of 20 seconds, so maybe that had something to do with it as well. I decided to take a little break, walk away from the table, grab some water, and get my head back in the right space. I've had this feeling 2 other times in my life. One time in high school when I was wrestling for a state championship, and then another time when I was playing on a live stream and I got pocket aces in a massive $10,000 pot, so I'm pretty sure I was just a little bit too overstimulated. I wasn't ready mentally for this first hand, and after taking a break, I feel much better and pretty level-headed now. About 20 minutes later, I look down at Jack 8 of spades in the cutoff, and I raise it up here to 1,200. The big blind, Darren Elias, the tournament crusher, with over $10 million in tournament earnings, calls, so we're heads up. I have $17,000 in tournament earnings, and he has $10 million, so I'm pretty sure he has a slight advantage over me. The flop is ace, ace 4, 2 spades. We flop the jack high flush draw. I continue for 800, and he calls. Turn 5 of spades, giving us a flush. That is what I'm talking about. Let's stick it to this tournament pro. He checks, and I bet 2,200, and he calls pretty quickly. The river's the 9 of hearts. It really shouldn't change anything. Darren checks to me for a third time, and I definitely think we should be going for value here. I decide to bet big. I make it 12,000, which looking back, I think is just a little bit too big. In my mind, I was trying to cooler a smaller flush, but he very quickly folds, and we take this one down. We've now made it through 4 levels of the tournament, but I late regged into the 3rd level, so we've only been playing now for 2 levels, and our stack is now up to 44,000. In level number 5 now, after the break, I get dealt in ace-king offsuit in the hijack. I raise it up here to 1,500. The small blind calls 1,500, and the big blind, Darren Elias, makes the call as well. We're 3 ways to a king-high board, giving us top pair, top kicker. There's a ton of flush and straight draws on this board, so I put out a bet. The small blind calls, but the big blind makes the fold. Turn 3 of clubs were heads up and the small blind checks over to me. The nervousness and anxiousness has subsided a little bit, but I still am slightly nervous. It still is a little bit hard to concentrate because it's a pretty serious situation, but I feel way better now than I did that first hand. I definitely want to keep betting my top pair top kicker. My opponent has 12,000 chips left, so I settle on a bet of 6,300, looking to shove all in on any brick river, but it doesn't come to that. He folds and we take down another one, stacking up quite nicely here in the first 5 levels. I don't play any more significant hands in level number 5, and we made it to level number 6 now, 494 entrants in this flight. Our stack is sitting around 40,000 chips, so right at starting stack. Next up here, I have Ace King again. I raised to 1,800. The small blind, Darren Elias makes the call, and the big blind makes the call as well. We're 3 ways now in position to Jack 4-3 Rainbow. Pretty good flop because I think we should have the best hand here a lot of the time, and if we don't, we can continue to put a lot of pressure on some 4x hands, some smaller pocket pairs like 5s and 3s, and we have all the overpairs in this situation as well, so when the action checks over to me, I throw out a 1/3 pot size bet. Darren in the small blind makes the call, and the big blind folds. We're heads up to another Jack, which is a really bad card. It's now less likely that I have a Jack once the Jack pairs, and also pretty hard to continue to bluff now. He's definitely not going to be folding a pair on this turn card, so when he checks to me, I decide to check this one back, and we hit a king on the river, giving us top pair, top kicker. On this river card, I'm expecting Darren to check probably 100% of the time. It's just a pretty bad card for him to bluff on. If he were to bet, I would expect him to bet very big, but ultimately, after thinking for roughly 40 seconds, he does check over to me. I have about 35,000 chips in my stack, and he covers me. So now we have to think, should we bet small, should we bet big, or should we check behind? Betting big on this card could be good because I could use this king as a scare card with a hand like ace-queen or ace-10, trying to bluff him off a smaller pocket pair. Betting small could be good as well because I can get him to call with worse hands like a 4, pocket 5s, or pocket 6s, and then checking behind can be good as well. The reason I should be checking behind here some of the time is because Darren's a very good player. He could put me in a very nasty spot. I have roughly 36,000 chips remaining, and let's say I bet something like 4,000. If he jams all in for the rest of my stack, I could be in a very nasty spot. Ultimately, I decided to check this one back, thinking there's not too much value in betting here in this situation. He shows 4-5 of spades for a pair of 4s. We show the king, and it's good. And I wonder what would have happened if we would have bet here on the river. He actually has a really good combination to turn into a bluff. He blocks pocket 4s, and because I checked back the turn, I really should never have a Jack X holding, and he can have all the Jack X holdings the way he played it. Let me know down in the comments what you guys would do in this situation. If you would have bet, how big you would have bet, and or if you would have checked. With only a few hands left until we're on a 90-minute dinner break, I'm on the button and look down at pocket kings. A beautiful sight. The second best hand you can get pre-flop. The under-the-gun player with a 50,000 chip stack raises to 1,800. The cutoff calls 1,800, and let's play for more. We've got a monster. Let's bump it up. I make it 7,000. Small blind folds. Big blind folds, and the action's back over on under the gun. He looks at me, looks down at his chips, and folds. The cutoff folds as well. We take this one down and go on a 90-minute dinner break, and lucky for me, I only live 8 minutes away from the casino, so I get to go home, have some food, and go over some hand histories with the Rogue. Okay, Rogue, so the board was Jack 3-4, Jack King. Do we go for value on the river, or do we check behind? What do you think? Huh? I don't know either. One of the big positives living 8 minutes away from Hard Rock, I get to hang out with my little buddy Rogue on dinner break. We haven't lost any big pots, haven't won any big pots, just kind of cruising along with around 50,000 chips. Honestly, I felt very nervous and anxious while I'm playing hands. I usually don't get this feeling. It's like adrenaline and anxiety while I'm playing, and I don't usually get this. Sometimes in cash games, if it's a really big pot, but it's almost too much. Like it's almost like on the verge of like panicky, and I don't know why. I think it's because it's a big tournament, and it's a very intense environment. People are staring at you. The decisions mean something. So I try to like relax while I'm in the hand, try to breathe, try to take my time. But like in the early on levels, I was like almost on the verge of like panicking. I don't know why, but I guess that means you're alive. You're feeling it. But we're gonna take a break. We'll be back in about an hour. Back from dinner break, level number 7, blinds are at 500, 1,000, and we have about a 50,000 chip stack. Cruising along here, 50 plus big blinds in a tournament is a ton of chips, and we get right into the action here when the hijack raises, and we have pocket queens next to act. I put in a 3-bet in the cutoff, folds all the way back over to him, and he makes the call. We're heads up against a hijack who is an older recreational player, and we have him slightly covered. He's been playing pretty conservative the entire tournament, so when he raises and then calls my 3-bet out of position, I put him on ace-king, ace-queen, pocket tens, and pocket jacks. I think he would always 4-bet aces and kings in this situation, so when the flop comes out 7-3-4, all hearts, I feel very good about this situation. Unless he flopped a flush, I think we should have the best hand here a lot of the time. I don't think he's ever raising and then calling a 3-bet with a hand like pocket 3s or 4s or even pocket 7s. So I continue for a rather large sizing on this board, trying to get called by all of his ace-high flush draws like ace-king offsuit with the ace of hearts, or a hand like pocket 10s or pocket jacks with a heart in it. He makes a call for 8,500. We're going to the turn, which is a queen, giving us top set in a 3-bet pot, and he checks over to me. It doesn't get much better than that. You're playing the biggest tournament of your life and you turn top set in a 3-bet pot. My opponent has around 30,000+ chips left, and I have to figure out what sizing I want to go here. It's an interesting turn card because now if he does have a hand like pocket 10s or pocket jacks, I don't think he's going to be calling a bet. If he does have ace-king offsuit with the ace of hearts, he probably won't call a bet either. However, we still have to bet our hand. We have to protect against those hands that do have some equity with a heart in their hand, so I decide to put out a 13,000 chip bet here, and the action's back over on the hijack. I'm actually thinking in my mind, I'm pretty sure he's going to be folding here. I don't expect him to call this bet very often. We should be taking down this pot and have a pretty big stack of over 70,000, but that doesn't happen. He decides to rip it all in. He goes all in. I asked the dealer how much more. He counts out the chips, and it ends up being around 15,000 more for me to call, which is around a min raise. Kind of a sick spot because by shoving here, he's representing a flush, but we're never folding our hand, so I decide to make the call. We show pocket queens for top set, and we're all in here for the first time in the biggest tournament we've ever played with a super strong hand. If we hold and win this pot, we should have over 100,000 chips in our stack. The river card's the 9 of clubs, and I look over at my opponent's hand, and he has ace-king of hearts for a flopped ace-high flush, and our top set of queens is cracked, and we lose a massive, massive pot. This might be one of the sickest tournament hands I've played. For over a 100 big blind pot, we turn top set versus a flopped flush, double this guy up. Luckily, we're still in. We have about 7,000 chips left, which is good for 7 big blinds. Hey, a chip and a chair, we're still in this. The cutoff raises to 2.5x, and I look down at king 4 suited in the big blind with only 4 bigs left. After paying the ante and the big blind, I decide to rip it all in, and the cutoff makes the call very quickly. We're up against king jack offsuit. We're all in for our tournament life. We gotta get lucky. Oh, diamond. All right. Good luck, guys. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yep. And we're out of the $5,300 main event tournament here at Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. In cooler fashion, queens versus ace-king suited. Queen on the turn, giving us top set. Pretty good, right? Nope. He flopped the flush. We didn't get there on the river. Really frustrating, man. This is why I don't play tournaments. 1, because I don't have the money. 2, because they're so freaking frustrating. You just play good all day, and boom, just like that, you lose. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I swear the last 2 months, I've just been on the wrong side of coolers so many times, and it's very hard for me to get lucky, but that's poker. That's what I signed up for, and it's going to turn around. Someday, I'm going to get lucky. Someday, I'm going to flop the flush, and they're going to have a set. It's going to happen, but happening over and over again when you're on the wrong side is just really frustrating. But on the positive side, I'm really happy with the way I played. I felt like I played really well for the entire 7 hours that I was there. I played patient. I didn't get out of line. I didn't punt my stack. And I just got coolered and lost. So what can you do? You know, nothing I can do there. I felt like I played a good poker, but I do want to thank the people who bought action for this tournament. I did sell a good bit of action because the $5,300 tournament is a big one. So thank you to you guys who bought action for the tournament. Shout out to my mom and dad who actually bought 5% each. So sorry to them. Sorry you guys couldn't cash, but maybe in the next one. It's pretty sick because this YouTube channel has changed my entire poker career in just about a year. I would never be playing a $5,300 main event if it wasn't for YouTube. The money I've made from it and the people who want to sweat my action helps me play this tournament. And then also playing big cash games as well. I wouldn't be able to play those big cash games or live streams if it wasn't for the YouTube channel. So thanks again to you guys showing up every single week, watching my videos, supporting me, buying action, everything like that. I appreciate it. We're probably not done yet. It's a Saturday night, it's 7 o'clock. I'm gonna still play some poker. There's a ton of cash games going on right now here at the Hard Rock. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break, make sure I'm not on tilt, maybe get some food or a drink or something, hit the cash game tables. But that is it for this one for the tournament, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. I take a break, make sure I'm not on tilt, and get seated here at the 5-10 game at the Hard Rock. I buy in for $2,500, which is the max, and immediately get into a big one. I call a raise on the button with pocket eights from an under-the-gun player. We're 3 ways to 8, 9, 4, 2 diamonds, flopping middle set. The pot's roughly around $100, and the under-the-gun raiser with $1,000 in his stack bets out for $300. He bets 3x the size of the pot. With middle set, I am loving life right now, and the other player decides to fold. I'm just going to try to raise this up and get it all in before any scare card comes out. I'm guessing he has a flush draw or an overpair or maybe a 9. I have no idea what he's doing. I make it $600, and he decides to go all in for $1,000. I make the snap call. We're going to run it once here with middle set. Let's hold. We're playing a $2,000 pot within the first 5 minutes of our cash session. The turn's the jack of diamonds and the river's the 10 of clubs. I show pocket eights and he shows 5, 6 of diamonds for a straight flush draw and hitting a flush on the turn. And just like that, we lose over a $2,000 pot with a set of eights. That makes 2 times today that we made a set and lose to a flush. Pretty annoying. I guess it could have been worse. He could have had a max stack of 2,500, but still very tilting. I just can't seem to quite run good in any of the bigger pots. Sometimes in poker, you're going to get it all in as a favorite and lose, and this is one of those times. Nothing we can do, just got to move on to the next hand where under the gun raises to 30. I 3-bet ace-king offsuit on the button to 100. Back over to the under the gun raiser who decides not to call 100, but to make it more, he re-raises my raise to $250. Now we started the hand $2,500 deep. With no straddle, that's 250 big blinds deep. Ace-king offsuit is not really a hand you want to get it all in with for 250 big blinds. Under the gun open, plus a 3-bet, plus a 4-bet. I feel like my only option is to call, so I put in $150 and we go to a deuce 3-4 flop. We have a gut shot and 2 overcards. I feel like it's a board we have to continue on, so when he bets 200, I call, turn 8, and now he checks over to me. From all my experience here at the Hard Rock, when people 4-bet, they usually have queens, kings, aces, and ace-kings. So when he bets this flop, after 4-betting pre-flop, I think he's going to have a lot of overpairs and maybe ace-king. I don't think he's ever folding overpairs if I bet here. So I decide to check back and try to realize my equity. Going to the river, which is a 9, he checks again, I check back, and he shows ace-queen of diamonds for a worse ace-high, and our ace-king is going to take this one down. Another interesting spot we get into here, when we have pocket 10s in the big blind, we're doing a $25 under the gun straddle now, and there's a cutoff raise to $75. I 3-bet to $275, and with the action back over on him, he 4-bets me. This is a different player from last hand. This guy's getting a massage. He doesn't look like a professional player. He seems to be quite tilted. I saw him play a hand where he lost a massive pot with second pair. So when he puts in a 4-bet here, I don't really know what to do. Obviously, pocket 10s is a really good hand, but against 4-bet ranges here at the Hard Rock, like I said last hand, it's usually queens, kings, aces, and ace-king. I don't really think I should be getting it all in for $2,500 with 10s, but I don't think that's that bad of a play because it's only 100 big blinds. I think folding is too tight versus this particular player. If it was a really tight knit, I could definitely get behind a fold out of position. So that just leaves one option, and that is to call and see a flop. So I throw in $775, and we see the first three cards, which is King, King, 9 Rainbow. I check, and he instantly checks back. Turn card 8, and now I bet out small, and he snap folds. So we win another one. Now we're about even on the session. A quick announcement, I'm going to be flying out to Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, August 10th, playing on a live stream there, Texas Card House Live. It's going to be a 5-10-25 game. Make sure to tune in Wednesday, August 10th, 7 p.m. You can watch me play some live poker. I'll be out there for a couple days making some videos, hanging out with some poker players, and hopefully winning some money. Next up, a pro in the cutoff makes it $60. With pocket tens in the big blind, we could 3-bet or we could call, and given the fact that there's an action player in the straddle, I want to play pots with him, so I decide to call, but the straddler ends up folding. Heads up to Jack 10-9 Rainbow, flopping middle set. I check, and the cutoff bet's $100. A little bit of background information on the cutoff player is that he's a pro, and I would consider him a rock. He doesn't get out of line. He's pretty tight aggressive, almost on the nitty side. Doesn't really ever pay off big bets. Very disciplined and patient pre-flop and post-flop. His range should be fairly tight in the cutoff. I don't expect him to be really out of line here. So when he c-bets this board, I do think he can have some straights, some sets, some big overpairs as well. He doesn't put in too much money and hardly ever pays off big bets with one pair of hands. So I elect to call $100, trying to keep his range wide, not scaring him off if he does have a hand like aces or kings. The turn's the 3 of clubs, and I check over to him again, assuming that sometimes this is going to go check-check. He will pot control with overpairs on this particular board because it's so wet and connected. I can have a ton of straights and some sets and 2 pairs as well, so I think he would be checking back, maybe some Jack-X holdings here, possibly some aces or kings hand as well. So when he continues on this turn, for $250, alarm bells are starting to ring a little bit. I don't think he's going to be doing this very often with a one pair hand. I think a one pair hand would check back sometimes. So when he continues on this turn, he's saying he has 2 pair, sets or straights, or big combo draws like ace king of clubs or ace queen of clubs. So now the question is, do we check raise this $250 sizing, or do we just call? And I would say against around 95% of players at this 5-10 game, I would always check raise the turn here with a set of 10s, but against a rock who doesn't get out of line, who I don't think is really ever bluffing in this situation, I don't think a check raise is the best option. Like I said before, if we check raise, he's going to fold his one pair of hands, he's going to call or maybe even re-raise if he has us beat. So I'm just going to continue to keep this pot manageable here and make the call for $250, and we go to a terrible river card, the 8 of clubs. Our middle set on the flop has now downgraded significantly. Any 7 or any queen will make a straight, and the backdoor flush gets there as well. I check to him knowing that he's going to be checking back all of his one pair hands or even sometimes his 2 pair hands as well, but a check back is not what we get. We get a $450 bet. Well, this just sucks. We have a set of 10s. We're facing a $450 bet on a super wet and connected board versus a very tight pro player who is a rock who hardly ever gets out of line. I just don't think he's ever bluffing here. I'm trying to think of what bluffing hands he could have. It's possible he could have a hand like ace king with the ace of clubs, or maybe pocket aces with the ace of clubs. Those are the only 2 hands I think that he would have that would be a bluff that may bet this river trying to represent a flush. We're losing to an 8, we're losing to a queen, we're losing to king, queen, and all flushes. We're only beating 1 or 2 bluffs if he even has those bluffs, so I reluctantly fold my set. And later he told us good fold that he had us beat, but he didn't tell me what he had, so we will never know. After about 10 hours of playing, getting beat up, not running the best, I end up calling it a night. All right, guys, that is it for this one. Another lake outro view with Rogue. No squirrels today. I think he's looking at the birds or the iguanas or something, but he's having fun. Anyway, yesterday was a really long day of poker, over 10 or 11 hours of playing. Busted out of the tournament, super tilting fashion, top set versus a flush. Went over to the cash games, got it all in my first hand with pocket eights versus a flush draw and a straight draw, and bink, he hits the flush on the turn for us to lose over a $2,000 pot. I won some medium-sized pots after that and had to fold a set of 10s. Ended up losing around $400 yesterday in the cash. But I said it before and I'll say it again, I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. If it wasn't for you guys showing up every single week, watching the videos, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now, traveling around, playing live streams, playing tournaments. I just wouldn't be able to do it. So I appreciate it. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for watching. When this video comes out, Wednesday, August 9th, or no, August 10th, I think, I'm gonna be playing on TCH Live Dallas 5510 or 5120. Tune into their live stream. You guys can watch me play. Hopefully we can run good, we will see. But hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below. And until next time, I'll see ya.